is Football Night in America, served by Applebee's.
Week 14, the Sunday that was. We're going to break it down here. It's Devin McCourty, Jason Garrett, Matthew Berry. Steve Kornacki is going to join us momentarily and throughout this segment. Let's start with arguably the best team in football. I think the best team in football when they're healthy. San Francisco 49ers doing it again to the Seahawks, completing the sweep. Drew Lock played for Geno Smith, acquitted himself well, as they say, but the 49ers still, Devin, doing 49ers things.
Yeah, and a really good start to the game. 49ers come out like we expect, drive down, but Seattle responds. Lock throws a really beautiful pass to DK Metcalf. Kind of turned into like, all right, we're going to see a game. And then we saw the 49ers, a.k.a. like the NFC All-Star team with all of these weapons, come out and they do what they do. And I think it's special to watch the way they're getting everybody involved, but it does make you feel now after watching this team, it kind of revolves around Deebo Samuel and his ability to be in the backfield and run with the ball, his ability to catch deep over routes or go down the field. And what I love watching him is the acceleration he has. He's a big physical guy, but I don't think people realize how fast he is. And it catches teams off guard, even though they're playing against Seattle, a team in their division. But the way they're running away with these games now, it's the way you want to play in December than going into January.
That's because you had to tackle that guy.
Yeah.
You know from firsthand experience how difficult it is, and they have so many mismatched players.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. I mean, Ayuk is kind of an afterthought. You know, it's Kittle, McCaffrey, Deebo, but the guy who's making the whole thing go is the quarterback. Yep. It's incredible, and I kept looking at the ball location today in the game. Guys are open. There's great design. Don't get me wrong, but boom, the ball's here. The ball's here. They're catching it on the run. And, you know, it's reminiscent of some of those great 49er quarterbacks from yesteryear. I'm not making a direct comparison, but that's the level they're playing at right now. And when your defense going against them, it's like you throw your hands up. Who are we going to try to take away? Because if you take that guy away, we're throwing it to this guy or hand it to this guy. They're going to be a tough out as this season goes on.
And by the way, their offensive line is playing great. Their defense is playing great. To your point, Mike, Seattle made a game of this, and yet it never felt like San Francisco was worried. Like they are, and Coach Garrett, you talk about the mismatches. That's the other thing, is that they have such talent on the offense, and Shanahan does such a good job of getting them in space and getting those mismatches. And like when you have guys like Deebo Samuel and Chris McCaffrey that are just like these Swiss Army knives that you can't match up any one of these guys one-on-one. And so to your point about Purdy sort of distributing the ball, he gets called a point guard, and I think he gets called a point guard as an insult, and I don't think that at all. Like I think he is a point guard, but in the Chris Paul sense, where he's seeing
even
the entire
Magic Johnson.
Field, right?
Maybe,
he's seeing the entire field, and he's understanding where his reads are, and he's just done an incredible job. And so on both sides of the ball, I don't know how you beat this Niners team.
Look at what he's done during this 5-game winning streak and 368 passing yards, his career high today. I'm going to do an unplanned mini speed round. You get one name. Give me the MVP candidate from the 49ers. Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams. Who would it be?
Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy.
Yeah, it's the quarterback, Brock Purdy.
We were boring with that.
You thought you were going to get us on that, didn't you?
I don't know. I was hoping somebody would join me. I like the idea of Trent Williams. I kind of like the idea. You know, when he was out, they didn't do very well at all. He comes back, and they've been great.
When he was out, Deebo was also out.
Well, then Deebo, though. Then Deebo. Boom, roasted. Okay, Seahawks have lost 4 in a row for the first time under Pete Carroll. They've got another one coming up against the Eagles. That one's not going to be easy. Then they have 3 winnable games. In or out playoffs, Seahawks, when it's all said and done?
I think out. And, you know, I think they just ran into the side of their schedule that's really hard, and this team hasn't been consistent enough to take on that challenge in your schedule. And I think as a football player, that's what you would want. You would want your tougher games when you kind of hit your stride, you're playing your best ball, and the Seattle team hasn't been playing their best ball. You look at the game last week against Dallas, the offense is clicking. Geno's going up and down the field, but they can't get a stop. There's no punts in the game. And then you look at your schedule, and you're like, man, now our defense has to go play the 49ers, and it was the same thing. They really couldn't get stops, even if their offense put some plays together, and now you get Philadelphia again next week. Just a tough spot when they're not playing their best ball. But I think that is what makes you a good football team, is playing your best ball in December. And with them not doing it, I just don't see them making the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that was the concern for Seattle coming into the season. They have a lot of weapons on offense. They got 3 big-time receivers they can get the ball to. They got a couple good runners. Geno was playing so well. Could they stop people on defense? And maybe more importantly, to your point, could they develop as a defense as the season has gone on? They've had some tough challenges. They haven't been up for it. It's going to be a scramble. I'd probably bet against.
Yeah, I would as well. Here's our upcoming schedule, right? They play the Eagles next week, an angry Eagles team. Then they're at Tennessee. That's always a tough out. Home to Pittsburgh, at Arizona. I think at best case scenario, they go 2-4, and you could see easily 3 of those games being losses. I think given how well the Rams are coming on and some of the other teams in the NFC,
even
unfortunately,
Green Bay is a
Green
team
Bay,
like that,
Green Bay, 100%. So I think, unfortunately, the Seahawks sit this one out.
I agree with each of you guys. I think it's going to be tough for them. One of the other teams coming on this year, late in the season, swept the Seahawks along the way, the Rams. They go to Baltimore and have a great game, like game of the day. Despite the rain, there were plenty of points. Coach, the Ravens showing the kind of resilience that I think you need playoff time. Don't blow the fourth quarter lead as we have seen them do. Hold on and get the win in overtime.
Yeah, again, I think the Ravens are one of the best teams in the league. They're so balanced, and they can attack you different ways offensively. I do think Lamar's really settled into the new offense with Todd Monken as the coordinator. So they have good balance there. They're really good on the defensive side. But hats off to the Rams. I really like what they did going in there. I like the plan. They ran the ball a lot early in the game. They didn't want to get into this pass rush game against that Raven front, so they ran the ball at them. And Matthew Stafford, when he's been healthy as a Ram, has been really, really good. He's been healthy lately. He gave them a chance today.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback off that. I think even though the Ravens won this game, I think they need to have a little concern. The last 2 weeks they played the Chargers before. They don't really have their best outing. It was the first game plan where Andrews out, and you have a new game plan now coming in. Isaiah likely expect guys to step up. They really don't get it going on offense. The defense steps up. Then you come back this week. The Rams came out and they ran the ball 9 straight times and went all the way down to the red zone. Then they decided to throw 3 straight times, so they kicked the field goal. But, like, this Baltimore team is built on having a good defense, and you never like when you hear they ran the ball 9 straight times and went down the field. So they get away, which did. It showed they were resilient, get away with a punt return for a touchdown in overtime. But this game is 1 or 2 plays from going the other way. Right. So I think it's important for Baltimore this week to come in, and I played in New England. We came in, we played a game, we won, but the message was if we play like this again or going down the stretch of this season, it won't end the way we want. And I think Baltimore needs to have that kind of edge. We showed that we're a tough football team. We're going to keep playing, but we want to play better. We don't want Lamar Jackson to have to make all of those scramble, run around, great plays that he had to make today. We don't want to rely on that each and every week. We need guys to step up. We need to be able to play this game on our terms and dominate that way, which I don't think we saw today from Baltimore.
I'm less worried than you are, Devin. I get it, but I feel like the Rams are one of the best running teams in the NFL. Like, you know, the Ravens are not the first team to succumb to a Sean McVay running offense as well. And I thought what was impressive was, like, the Ravens got punched in the mouth, right? They were losing at the end of the third quarter. That's the first time that's happened all season long. And they said, okay, let's figure this out. Like, the Rams came to win that game, and they easily could have lost it, and the Ravens found a way to win. Almost 400 total yards from Lamar Jackson. That's what you want. Now, there's a reason that guy got paid in the offseason. He's one of the faces of he's a former MVP. He's one of the faces of the league. And when you have a guy like that, sometimes you need that guy to go, okay, Lamar, put on Superman's cape and go win this for us. And that's what he did. And so I thought, I'm more encouraged. Is there stuff to clean up for the Ravens? Of course. But they now have a 2-game lead. 2 weeks from now, not next week, but 2 weeks from now, they play the Niners. And I think there's a very good chance that's a Super Bowl preview.
The Rams have to feel good about themselves, even though they lost. You know, we talked earlier about the Seahawks. Can they make it? Do you think the Rams take one of those spots vacated by Seattle?
I do. You never like to say moral victories, but I feel like this was a moral victory. I mean, they went into this game. They were more than a touchdown underdog, the Rams were, and they were a couple of plays away, to Devin's point, from winning this game. West Coast team traveling for a 1 o'clock East game at Baltimore, a tough place to play. And the Rams, again, were just a couple of plays away from beating what many people think is the best team in the AFC right now. So I do think the Rams get into the playoffs.
And they got Cooper Kupp going.
Yes,
so I think
they did.
Even more than just playing tough, I think their offense looked more like how they wanted to look. Williams being able to run the ball. They got the run game going, but using Puka and using Kupp. in a way that now you create some balance. I think they have to feel good leaving that game.
Yeah, attack different ways, throw it to different guys, hand it to different guys, have a veteran quarterback who knows how to run the show, have one of the great defensive linemen of all time on the other side, then get cranked up over there too. They've played really well. And for Sean and that staff to kind of give this team identity and direction here and keep them in the fight, again, it's been impressive.
Yeah, especially after last year, as bad as it was, as far as they fell, the bill they had to pay after going all in to win the Super Bowl, they're back. And if I'm one of those top teams in the NFC, I don't want them showing up in the wild card round or the divisional round or any round, not that team. If I'm in the AFC, I don't want the Bills making the playoffs either, and they took a big step today toward getting back to the postseason despite being 6-6. Crazy game, came down to the wire. Bills-Chiefs, third straight win for the Bills in Arrowhead in the regular season.
Yeah, there's a comfort level that, like, they don't get rattled going into Arrowhead. There's always the mystique of it, the loud crowd and all that. The Bills don't care about that because they know they have 17 as their quarterback, and he can go and compete with anybody. What I liked today from Buffalo was I thought their defense stepped up and made some plays. And I think lately we haven't seen this team was known for their defense. They've had some injuries this year, but they've had to count on those guys to go out there and make some plays. And I know the offsides call will steal all of the attention, but I think for Buffalo to watch this group kind of come together, Ed Oliver deflects a pass towards the end of the game. They're in a 4th and 15 situation, which you want to be in from a defensive standpoint. They get to stop another pass that gets deflected on 4th and 15. So I think for them, the confidence level now going forward, knowing like, hey, we got Josh Allen. He's going to make his plays. He's going to keep doing that. But we need to make sure we make some plays that help him out on defense. And I thought they did some of that tonight.
No doubt. The defense played well, and they're a dangerous team because of the quarterback. What I liked about it is James Cook got himself involved a little bit. They ran it a little bit. He threw it to him. And Josh threw the ball to 9 different receivers. So there's certainly this feeling that he's carrying the load. We see that every week with them. But as long as he can just spread it out a little bit so you don't have the feeling he has to do everything on every play, then he saves it for those moments. The play on the sidelines, when he's going out of bounds and he throws it up, and it was the Mahomes-type play. And he's a unique player who can make those plays. If he doesn't have to do it on every single down and every big moment, I think they have a chance. That was a big win for them today.
It was their season on the line, to be perfectly honest, and to go into Arrowhead and come away with a win, that's great. I will say, to your point about James Cook, that's one of the things that we've really seen since Joe Brady took over this offense. Like, James Cook, in every game that Joe Brady's been the coordinator for, James Cook has had over 100 yards from scrimmage. So they've been getting him going, which is really impressive as well. One of the concerns for me about this offense, though, is Stephon Diggs. I get it. Snead was on him, and Snead is a shutdown corner, but you're Stephon Diggs. Yep. He's had under 35 receiving yards in 3 of the last 4 games. They're not getting much from Gabe Davis. They get a little bit from Dalton Kincaid, but again, it can't all be on Josh Allen. That was one of the criticisms of Ken Dorsey's offense, is like you can't just keep asking Josh Allen to keep making these plays and bailing everyone out. And it ended up working out for them today due to an offsides call on some level. But at some point, they've got to get both their passing and running offense clicking.
And I think when you watch Diggs, he's had a few drops in these games. Not the big drop that gets everybody's attention, but the quick little bubble screens where you might pick up 3 or 4 yards that gets a drop. He's dropped those plays. So, it's all interesting because of the back and forth between him and Allen, sometimes on the sideline, then his brother chiming in. So, like, you see all of these things happen. I think since his brothers chimed in, we really haven't seen the Diggs to Allen relationship and connection that we've gotten used to seeing. So, I think they really need to get that going if they're going to make the run, which I don't expect this team to make the playoffs.
But see, I think they will, and I think they'll be dangerous because the pressure's off. Last year, they were the favorite all offseason long. And I remember saying, why aren't they upset? Saying, the Bengals are the ones who went to the Super Bowl. Why aren't they the ones everybody's talking about going to the Super Bowl and winning? Why is it us? We haven't done anything. We haven't been to the Super Bowl in 30 years. I feel like that's gone now, and they could just go play. And, we're already expected to not make it, so what the hell if we don't? Flip it over. The way the Chiefs reacted to the offside penalty that you mentioned, Coach, I feel like between Mahomes, Andy Reid, it's just kind of like they're venting because they feel like no matter how hard they try, it's not what it needs to be. And this is just an easy way for them to say, we're upset about this, but I think the bigger picture is. They're just upset. It's not as easy as it used to be for them.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with them. Obviously, you talk about the officiating. We do the Detroit game in the opener, and the tackles are too far back, right? So that's the story. They get the no defensive pass interference call last week. Now they're too far across the ball, so they're probably putting their hands up like this. But the bigger thing is when you think about where they were offensively over the last 4 or 5 years, I mean, they were elite. They were historic. They played at such a high level, and a lot of guys have gone. Tyreek's down to Miami now, so they're a different team, and they're still trying to forge their identity on offense. And you can feel the frustration. For them scoring 17, they're used to scoring 40, right? They're used to going up and down the field like it's nothing, and they're still trying to find their way there. So you have these tough losses. You have these penalties that go against you. That's when the frustration comes out. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond. I'm betting on them. I love the coach. I love the quarterback. I think they'll respond the right way, but frustration certainly exists.
Yeah, and it's tough because when you watch and you have a play like that where Tony lines up off sides, my thinking is this time of the year, let's put our most consistent, reliable players on the field. Kadarius Toney is one of the most dangerous players with the ball in his hands, but we've continued to see these kind of things show, whether it's a drop, lining up off sides, maybe a missed block. Like these little things show up, and they continue to talk about we need to find somebody else other than Kelsey. We need to find, and to me, it has to turn into we don't need to find the most talented guy. We need to find the guys on the field who will be where they're supposed to be when they need to be there. They'll catch the ball. We'll do all of the simple things because we have a quarterback who's great. He's going to do the rest. We just need you to do your small role, be that role player. And to me, Tony lined up off sides. They can blame whoever they want, but do you go out there on the field, look to the side, whatever side you're on, do you look at the referee? Do you see if you're on? Because they could have put anybody in that spot, whether it was Justin Watson, Sky Moore. Like, Tony didn't have to make a great play. All he had to do was watch Kelsey catch it, stay behind him, catch it, and go score.
Well, that's not a given that he's going to catch it. That was big for him.
and that's the problem.
They've been trying to will him into their next Tyreek Hill. They got him a steal from the Giants, and this is a coup for us, and this is great. We're going to make him into Tyreek Hill. And they keep pushing and pushing. At some point, you're right. We got to go with somebody who we can trust, not somebody that we have this grand vision for, Matthew.
And the problem is they just don't have that guy in the roster. The best guy on their roster that isn't named Travis Kelce is, in terms of the pass catchers, is Rashee Rice. But he's a rookie, right? And we like Rashee Rice, and he's made plays, but for whatever reason, they haven't trusted him with a full-time role. And so, yeah, it's, Kadarius Toney, and that's tough, and right, I get that it's a ticky-tack call, but like in that situation, you can't put yourself in that situation. Look at the ref, am I good, and get a thumbs up. And I get that Mahomes and Reed were upset that they hadn't gotten a warning, but like in that, it's just too crucial a situation. And unfortunately, that we've just seen, whether it's Justin Watson, whether it's Marquez Valdes-Scantling, we've seen other guys in big moments, also Sky Moore. They've all had kind of these mental lapses, and it's just tough to see. They didn't have Isaiah Pacheco in this game as well, and that's a big loss on that offense because he's such a hammer, and they tried to make up for it with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jerick McKinnon, but neither of those guys is Pacheco, the hammer that he is. When you can get that run game going, it helps. Like, this is 2 losses in a row for a team that we're not used to seeing lose at all.
Yeah, but let me just, Andy Reid's greatness is the nuance of coaching. He doesn't make it black and white. So he understands that, okay, Patrick Mahomes, we're going to play within a system, but I'm not going to take the Mahomes out of Mahomes. Mm-hmm. I'm going to let him do his thing. Travis Kelce, play within the system, okay, but we got to let Kelce be Kelce. And I think he has a track record of this with guys like Kadarius Toney. And I'm not putting Kadarius into that category, but he is an elite playmaker when he gets everything right. So Andy is going to subtly give him opportunities. He has to earn everybody's trust. We get that. But he's going to push him along and give him some chances to do it and build his confidence over time. He'll do the same thing with Rice. And, they haven't written their story yet this year. And he's trying to give them chances. There are going to be some slip-ups. You have to live through them. And ultimately, you got to show up and do what you need to do. But he has a track record of these guys ultimately coming out the other end and performing for him.
So do you think that they'll be able to count on these guys like in January in the playoffs?
It's tricky, you know? It's still December, so they're still growing.
To see.
And I think they're all probably wringing their hands a little bit like, God, I wish this was happening 2 months ago. They're still in that process, but these are the guys they have, and they're talented, and I bet on Andy to figure it out.
Another new aspect for the Chiefs would be playing a road playoff game with Patrick Mahomes as the starting quarterback. Steve Kornacki tell us how the chase for the top seed in the AFC currently shakes out.
Yeah, a big shift today for Kansas City in the wrong direction. It's really interesting. They came into the day chasing the Ravens and chasing the Dolphins for that top seed, but actually not in that bad position because they have that head-to-head win over Miami. They had the conference tiebreaker over the Ravens, so a lot of the tiebreaker scenarios were leaning in the Chiefs' favor, but now they lose the game. They fall to 8-5. They are 2 full games behind the Ravens. If Miami just beats Tennessee, they could be 2 full games behind the Dolphins. And it leaves the Chiefs, you see, with just a 9% chance now of having the top seed. Had they just won today, that number would have been nearly 40%. They would have been right in the thick of it. Instead, single digits. And that brings you to what you just mentioned. Patrick Mahomes, he's played in 3 Super Bowls and 11 other playoff games in his career. All 11 of those playoff games were at Arrowhead Stadium. So as the Chiefs' chances of getting that top seed decline, the chances that Patrick Mahomes may actually have to hit the road in the playoffs are going up.
In the NFC South, who knows who's going to win it? Somebody's got to. We know the Panthers won't. The Buccaneers went into Atlanta today, got the win. And their quarterback, he's got that quality, Coach, that you like to mention.
Yeah.
Same letter as his last name,
Yeah.
M, Mayfield, little moxie.
Yeah, moxie, gumption, stuff in his neck. He's got that stuff,
And,
right?
and nobody's really paying attention. We just kind of wrote the Bucs off in October, and they, I think, are the most dangerous team out of that division.
The other thing he's got this guy who's about 11 feet tall on one side, Mike Evans. He's got Godwin on the other side. And as a quarterback, if you have these guys, they can't take them both away on every snap. So he's got places to throw the football, mismatched players like we were talking about with the 49ers, and he has enough edge to him. He's been kind of kicked to the curb a little bit. First player taken in the draft, 3rd or 4th different team now, right? So I think he likes that chip on his shoulder. He likes it to grow into a mountain and say, okay, and play to that. And I think they're just the best team of the ones remaining. I think they're better than New Orleans. I think they're better than Atlanta. And the strength of that team for a while has been their defense. Todd Bowles does a great job. So they have the components on the other side, too, to play good defense. For me, I think they're the team that's going to separate themselves down the stretch in that division.
Yeah, I'm going to be the guy that played defensive back, and I'm going to hit a defensive back. Kyle Hamilton and Winfield Jr., by far, these 2 guys have been phenomenal. And for Tampa Bay, having Antoine Winfield Jr., it's like every time we sit in that screening room and we watch the game and we say it's a strip sack, we say it's an interception, Winfield Jr. is somewhere around the play. And I think his playmaking, he's been the best player on that defense. And it's a defense that has Devin White, Levante David, Vita Vea, Carlton Davis. Like, they have good players, but he has just shined for this team. And I think that's what they have. They have guys who have played in the big game, who's played with Brady, won a Super. They know what it looks like. So they know it's not perfect right now, but they also know, hey, all we need to do is get an invitation to the dance. Yeah. If we get there and we get in the playoffs, someone has to beat us. And like you said, Coach, having Mayfield out there, who he said at the end of the game today, I knew they were probably going to double Godwin. I knew they were going to double team Mike Evans. I got no problem throwing the Otten. We'll throw it up to him. He's one-on-one. He makes the game-winning touchdown. And that's a team that understands how to play the game. And if they get a matchup, you might not want to play them, but we'll see how it all works out. It's a 3-way tie in the South, but it looks like it's Tampa's to control.
And if they win, they'll host a playoff game, whether, because that's how it is. They'll be the NFC South champs. They control their own destiny, which is exciting. And again, we go. It's a quarterback-driven league. And does Baker Mayfield have his flaws? He does. But to your point, Coach Garrett, this is somebody that the team can rally behind, that he finds a way. They've won back-to-back games now. And what's nice is that if you look at the rest of the division, right? I mean, while you may not feel like Baker Mayfield is all that, you feel better about him than Desmond Ridder, who made a number of key errors in this game today. And I think you feel better about him than Derek Carr, who's poor Derek Carr. It's every week it's another injury for this guy. And he's without some of his weapons. And so Baker Mayfield, not only has he played well and gotten this team in a position to control their own destiny, but give a credit to this entire offense because they have found something in Rachaad White. Rachaad White might be the most unknown running back in the NFL, but over 130 yards from scrimmage today. He's had over 100 yards in 2 of the last 3. He had, almost 90 the week before. They've found something with Rachaad White, who continues to just kind of grind out yards, move the sticks, pick your cliche, but it's suddenly a balanced offense. They're getting something out of K-Dot and the tight end. Like, it's not just the Mike Evans and Chris Godwin show. They've got other pieces around Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, White took a screen pass today and was shot out of a cannon for a 31-yard touchdown. I want to say one thing about Antoine Winfield Jr. The year they won the Super Bowl, he was a rookie. And it's Tom Brady, Tom Brady, Tom Brady, and for good reason. But Winfield forces a fumble in the divisional round game against the Saints. When the Saints are up 10, turned the whole game around, ripped the ball out of Jared Cook's hands, I believe, turned the whole game around and fueled the comeback.
He's a playmaker.
Well, no, you guys feel like the word moxie's only reserved for quarterbacks. I mean, he's got moxie.
He's got moxie.
It's the same stuff we're talking about.
Hey, Steve Kornacki, help us figure out who is going to win that NFC South with 3 teams tied at 6 and 7.
Yeah, I'll give you the numbers. You can figure out what they all mean and who's got the best chance in your mind. On paper, as you've been saying, it is the Buccaneers, and this was wild this afternoon watching this take shape. The Bucs tied with the Falcons and the Saints, all 6 and 7. If the Bucs had not made that drive and scored the go-ahead points with 30 seconds left, they would have dropped to 5 and 8. They would have been 2 games behind the Falcons, and they would have been all but extinct when it came to the playoff picture. Instead, with this tie, you have to go all the way down to the common games tiebreaker. That's where the Bucs have the edge. They control that tiebreaker, and with it, they control the path to the NFC South Championship. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here, because look, what is next for the Bucs? They got to go to Green Bay next week. They got to play the Jags after that. So yes, they move into position, they move into controlling the path, but that could be a tenuous grasp that they have on it. Meanwhile, the Falcons, by giving up that lead late, had they just won the game, they would have had 2 games on the Bucs. They would have had tiebreaker with the Saints if it came to it. They would have had more than an 80% chance of winning the division if they had just held on this afternoon against the Bucs. Instead, their chances plummet all the way to 27%. I don't know if there's a team that took a bigger individual hit today than the Falcons did. And let's not forget the Saints. The Saints sitting here now with a 30% shot of carrying this division. A lot of that has to do with where they closed their season, at Tampa and then home against Atlanta. The Saints are going to need a few other things to break their way, but they could come into those final 2 weeks with a chance to earn their way to a division title.
We thought and thank you, Steve, we thought the Lions would be much closer to breaking out the division championship hats and T-shirts. The Bears had something to say about it. They almost took them 3 weeks ago at Ford Field. And today, Devin, the Bears dismantled the Lions. And you could argue that offense has been exposed by what the Bears have done to it defensively.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway is this Detroit defense. We continue to say it every week, but they have to be able to step up and make some plays. You're going against a Chicago team, and I know we all know how dangerous Fields can be, but there's plenty of games where teams are able to contain them. They're not able to move the ball, Chicago, but this is now you play a team for the second time, and they come out and they control the game. They do whatever they want in the game. You just can't come back this time. But to me, this offense has led the way. Gibbs, Montgomery, they still had flashes today where they stepped up and made big plays. But it seems like every time they turn and they look to this defense to make a play, if Hutchinson's not getting a strip sack or something like that, it's just like the play doesn't happen. And when you start talking about the top teams, you talk about having a chance of being a contender. If you don't have both sides of your ball that can go out there and play with the best teams in the NFL, we're wasting our time. And I think Detroit, until this defense can catch up and play winning championship-style football, they won't have a chance. So they need somebody else other than Hutchinson to step up and say, hey, I'm going to be a guy that every time a play comes to me, I'm going to make my play. I'm not going to let my guy beat me. We're not going to give up big plays. They just haven't been able to do that this season.
Yeah, if you look at the arc of the Lions over the last couple of years, the first part of the season last year, their defense really struggled. They were the worst in the NFL. The last half of the year, that's what keyed the turnaround. Mm-hmm. That's why they won the games down the stretch, and their defense has played well in the early part of the year. But the last month or so, it's gotten really leaky. Teams are moving the ball a lot of different ways. You said it, Justin Fields is a hard guy to defend just because he makes so many spontaneous plays besides the designed quarterback runs. But the biggest concern for me in Detroit right now, they seem like they've lost their swagger a little bit. You know, for a while there, it was like, we're going to do whatever happens, we're going to find a way to win this game. Mm-hmm. And the last few weeks, there seems to be a little bit of doubt. Goff hasn't handled the ball nearly as well. Interceptions, we saw the fumble snap in the game today. They just don't seem to have that same kind of, swag coming in the room. So they got to recapture that. They're still in a great position here, but it starts with the defense. They got to take care of the ball, and they got to get their mojo back.
I also think, by the way, to your point about Jared Goff, he needs to play better. So here's the good news. This was their last outdoor game for the season. Jared Goff has traditionally, and especially this year, played much better when he's in a dome. But here's the bad news. At some point in the playoffs, they're going to have to go on the road outside. And the remaining schedule, even though it's indoors, not easy. Home to Denver, that Broncos defense playing really well. They're at Minnesota, at Dallas, and then home to Minnesota. So they got 2 against the Vikings, who are fresh off a 3-0 win. But whatever, the Vikings are no pushover at all.
Tough.
That defense is tough. That's really turned around. Dallas is obviously Dallas, and so all of a sudden, and Denver's no pushover, and so you've suddenly got 4 tough games here. Goff has not played well recently. He needs to play better. Now, their offensive line was banged up. That's some of it. One of the things that Goff really needs time. When he has a clean pocket, he's good. And give credit. You don't want to just take away credit from the Bears defense. Bears defense has played really well over the last month. Like, the Lions are not the only team that the Bears have made look silly. So give them credit. But for a team that we all have such high expectations for to go not only into the playoffs, but far into the playoffs, they need to play better, and they weren't on either side of the ball today. And
I will say one concerning thing was Dan Campbell talked about discipline from the team. And if you look at that play, the 4th down play is 4th and 13. Chicago's just seeing if Detroit jumps offside so they can move up 5 yards and possibly kick a field goal. They jump offside, Chicago snaps it, and now you find DJ Moore for a touchdown, which was really a key play in that game because if they just stay onside, they probably take the penalty and punt the ball. But you talk about discipline, not understanding and being aware of the situation. You jump off sides, now it's a free play, and you give really a game-changing touchdown.
The other big play that bothered me was the 4th and 2 late.
The run,
Yeah, I mean, just look at it from the side. I always love to watch football from the side in those situations. The guys in the dark shirts, Chicago, they were 2 and 3 yards deep in terms of penetration and owning that line of scrimmage. And what Detroit's all about, they're about grit. They're about toughness, controlling the line of scrimmage. That's what the coach is all about. That's what they've built there. And it was like, in the big moment, the Bears were that team. And again, the Lions got to get that back.
Well, and also, by the way, Coach, you and I talked about this in the beginning of the year. This is a running football team. This is what they want to do. They want to run with Montgomery and Gibbs. And in this game, Jahmyr Gibbs gets 11 carries. David Montgomery gets 10. That's not enough for those guys. This is a team that was built around running those guys and setting up play action for Jared Goff. And again, credit the Bears defense for stopping it. But that's where it starts for them, and they weren't able to do that effectively.
I talked to Montez Sweat after the game, the guy who arrived via trade from the Commanders. Didn't want to be traded, but he's not complaining now. He's happy where he is. Double-digit sacks for the first time in his career. He got one today. He said the key was getting the Lions to 3rd down. Hold them 1st down, 2nd down, force them to 3rd down. And, he was diplomatic in not criticizing Jared Goff, but get him to 3rd down, and they can put pressure on him and make good things happen. And the Bears win. The Lions lose. Steve Kornacki, help us understand which team in the NFC North will likely finally get the T-shirt and hats one of these days.
Well, I don't want to say we have a real race yet, but we could, and that's the seed I want to plant right here. The Lions, you can see coming into today with an 87% chance of winning the division. They end the day less than that, but still 72%, still clearly in the driver's seat. But what's interesting is Minnesota. Look, Minnesota and Green Bay both have a chance here, but let's focus in on Minnesota in particular. And you mentioned this just a minute ago. Look, the Vikings win today, 7-6. They're 2 games behind the Lions, and the Vikings have yet to play the Lions this year. They will have, in 2 weeks and in the last game of the season, games against the Lions. And if you stretch this out just a little bit more, I know this is a lot to say about a team that just won 3-0 against the Raiders, but if the Vikings can go to Cincinnati and get a win, if they can sweep the Lions, and if they can beat the Packers at home, the Vikings, that's all they have to do to win the division. They control their own path to winning the division because they would then have the tiebreaker with the Lions. They'd make up 2 games by beating them head-to-head. So it's an interesting situation. The Vikings came into today 6-6. The Lions came in 9-3, a full 3-game lead for the Lions coming into today. But we can say at the end of the day that the Vikings don't need any help. They control their own path to a division title. And like I said, Green Bay's still alive too, but they would need some help. The Vikings, if they can sweep out the season, they get the division.
Awesome stuff as always, Steve. Great to have you back for the balance of the season. Now it's time. We turn to Matthew Berry for some fantasy news.
For some fantasy. You know what? And what's exciting, I don't want to out anyone, but on this table, and it's rare that this happened, on this table we have 4 fantasy football managers. We got Coach Garrett and Devin McCourty into fantasy this year as well. I know no one wants to talk about their fantasy team. No one cares. But I will say people do care about Cooper Kupp. Like, finally, we were worried about Cooper Kupp. Like, this is a road game against, this is a road game on the road at Baltimore. We talked about this game earlier, guys, but they were able to get him going. He had a 26% target share. It was his highest in a game since week number 8. His first game with more than 48 receiving yards since week 6. And by the way, most importantly, he looked like Cooper Kupp. He looked like a number 1 wide receiver in real football and fantasy football. They were able to
Feed him,
right? Exactly. I mean, Stafford was looking for him. He looked good. He looked healthy, too.
He looked like the guy that we've seen for the last number of years.
The other, I think that's a big fantasy storyline is we've gotten a wide receiver 1 back. Here's another fantasy storyline that I also think has implications in real-life NFL. Jake Browning has kept this Bengals offense rolling, guys. Bengals have now scored 34 points each of their past 2 games since taking over as the starter in Week 12. Browning ranks 2nd in the NFL in yards per pass attempt. Now, this is one thing that's important, and I think you guys can talk about this. 65% of Browning's passing yards over the past 2 games have come after the catch. So, I mean, what they're doing offensively, Coach, and I'm sure you've been in these situations where you have a backup and but they've designed, here, really quick, easy catch and throw stuff and then let their speedy guys get after the catch.
No doubt. And then timely shots down the field. We saw that. Make the bulk of it, get him comfortable. Make him 10 for 10 before he even blinks, right? But then they're all down around the line of scrimmage, and you got some weapons there. Chase and Higgins, those guys running down the field. I think about Wally Pipp.
Yeah.
I think about, no, I'm kidding.
Joe Burrow looking for a job.
You guys knew I was lost on that one. Yeah.
You know who Wally Pipp is?
No.
Wow.
He was a first baseman for the New York Yankees.
What year?
Way back when, 1920s. And he had a headache one day. And so we went to the manager and said, I'm gonna sit this one out. And they said, all right, let's let the young guy Lou Garrett go in. 2,130 games later, Lou Garrett came out. So
right. And that's why I don't know who Wally Pipp is.
Be careful now.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago. You need to know who Wally Pipp is.
But the main reason you don't know who he is because there you went.
It's a concept, though.
Yeah,
it's a concept.
While we don't think he's going to be replacing Joe Burrow long term, what Browning has shown is that he can be a viable starting quarterback in the NFL. And for fantasy, he puts up a really big day. And most importantly, he can keep the fantasy relevant players on the Bengals, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, afloat as well. And so that's exciting.
So I need to go get him, Barry.
I'm just saying, absolutely. Like,
that's all I need to hear.
80% almost completion percentage through the first 3 games. NFL record. It's like 79% and change through his first 3 starts.
So I believe it is now time for my DraftKings crowning moments. I have them right here. These are, once again, as always, actual bets from actual bettors. So somebody out there put very specific amount. $5,000, $738.01 on Odell Beckham Jr. Anytime touchdown at plus 300. Won almost $23,000 on OBJ's touchdown. Somebody else out there, much smaller bet, put $100 down on Davis Allen, the tight end for the Rams. Tyler Higbee was out, but somebody said, okay, I bet you Davis Allen gets in the end zone. Here's $100 on that. Anytime touchdown. It went off at $2,800, so they win almost $3,000 there. And how about this? Somebody out there put $1,731.73, again, a very specific bet, on Zach Wilson, over 186.5 passing yards. That went off at minus 115. That won over $3,200. But wow. I like somebody out there betting on Zach Wilson. Good for him, by the way. Good for Zach Wilson.
Played well today.
He played well. He's been through the ringer. Good for that kid who has just gotten, you know what?
I would have been reluctant to bet on
Zach Wilson, as would a lot of people. We actually talked about this on Fantasy Football Happy Hour. This was my take. As I said, I think Zach Wilson's going to play well, and I'll tell you why. I said, listen, guy's already been benched for Tim Boyle. How much worse could it get? Like, the whole thing with Zach Wilson is mental, right? It's like no one questions that he's got physical skills. So it's just like if he's out there, he's just like, I was a starter, they booed me out, I lost my job to Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian. Like, I'm probably not going to be here next year. Like, whatever.
Let it rip.
WTF, I don't care anymore. Let's let it rip. And by the way, he played I think his best game of his professional career. Like, that's a big win for the Jets. So good for Zach Wilson. I told Devin McCourty last night they were going to win, and he didn't believe me.
He made sure to tell us right now, too. He definitely.
Yeah.
And I try to talk him out of it, so give Berry credit.
There you go. There you go. All right. A reminder to everyone, don't forget, on DraftKings Sportsbook this season, new customers can bet $5 and pocket $150 in bonus bets instantly. All customers, by the way, all customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every single day. All you got to do is download the app, use promo code SNF when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours.
All right, it's speed round time, and we are going to be in hyperdrive on this one. Word association, it's the day of the backup quarterback. There's backup quarterbacks everywhere, Devin McCourty. Joe Flacco, dare I say elite, delivers for the Browns. What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Old man still doing it. I mean, it was special watching his play action, his throws down the field, his fourth down throws for touchdowns. I mean, you just didn't expect that. He comes back in. I saw so many different takes. Like, I mean, he had his time. I don't want to see him out there, 38-year-old Joe Flacco making it happen.
Yeah, Don Strock. Reminded me of Don Strock, the old Dolphin backup. Whenever he went in the ball game, kind of moved around a little slow, found the right guy, threw it to him. Time and time again, they went to Flacco. He threw the ball a lot in this game and came through for the Brownies.
Shouldn't have been available. Like, played decently last year for the Jets, was just sitting on his couch. When you think about all the quarterback injuries in the NFL this year, it was amazing that he was still out there. And so credit Kevin Stefanski for getting him up to speed and sticking with him. He announced after the game that Flacco is going to be his quarterback the rest of the way, and I think the Browns have a much better shot at making the playoffs now with Flacco under center.
I want to know specifically why he's not a Jet. That's what I want to know. This tough New York media needs to start asking tough questions of everyone, from Robert Saleh to Joe Douglas, the GM, all the way up to Woody Johnson. Why wasn't Joe Flacco on your team this year? Because this guy can still get it done.
It didn't look that great last year for him in a Jets uniform.
Well, it still looked better
It didn't look good for anyone, though.
It's better than what they have.
And if you're bringing Aaron Rodgers in, you're probably not keeping Joe Flacco.
Bring him back.
We're just adding the age of our team.
Bring him back once he's hurt. Jake Browning, we got to get to the next one.
No, I'm just saying, but Florio's argument is that
he's supporting me, so it's okay.
When Aaron Rodgers was out for the year, Joe Flacco's sitting on his couch at home. Why isn't he given a call?
Yes.
And eventually they signed Trevor Siemian, but why wouldn't you say, like, hey, Joe, the offense, you're sitting there, you're a free agent, come help us out with Zach and see what happens. That's the question.
Did you guys watch the game today? I mean, Zach Wilson
took a while to get there.
Took a while to get there, baby.
Took a while to get there. All right, Jake Browning.
Jay Cool. It used to be Joe Cool. Call him Jay Cool. I mean, as impressive of the last 2 weeks have we seen a backup quarterback coming in. But the biggest thing is he has the weapons there. If you're going to be a backup quarterback, let me back up in Cincinnati throwing to T. Higgins or Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and have Mixon in the backfield, and now Chase Brown stepping up making plays too.
I've argued this for years. Montana made the throws in the West Coast offense. That's why they won 4 Super Bowls, right? The system was great. The coach was great. The receivers were great, everything. But he was the trigger man. And I agree with you on Jake. It's a great environment. Zach has done a really good job with them. They have weapons all over the place. The guy completed 31 out of 36 the other night and comes back again and has a great game. So I've been really impressed with his poise, his composure, the spirit he plays with. Mm-hmm. He's smiling out there. You can see confidence. He's played a lot of football, had a great career at Washington, and I think you're seeing the results of that.
I'll tell you what I thought of. Cooper Rush. I remember last year when Dak Prescott went down with the injury, I was talking with Coach Garrett, and we were saying, hey, what do you get out of Cooper Rush? And you're like, listen, he's not going to wow you, but he understands the system. He's been there. He's going to make the plays he's supposed to. He's not going to lose the game for you. He's going to run your offense fine. And that's what Jake Browning is. He's been in that system for a little while. He's not going to wow you, but again, to your point, high completion percentage, get you some quick stuff, take the deep shots, involve your playmakers. Like, again, and I say this as a compliment, not an insult, a system quarterback for the Cincinnati system.
First word for me is the playoffs, but in a real way, exclamation point, not a question mark for the Bengals with Jake Browning. He was a backup for the Vikings before he left for Cincinnati. Now Nick Mullins came in today. Josh Dobbs got the hook. Nick Mullins comes in, 3-0. Hey, a win's a win. What's your impression of him?
I mean, good, but I'm Josh Dobbs. I want to keep seeing Josh Dobbs. I know for you, you're a Vikings fan, so you're all for Mullins coming in and getting the 3 points. But solid coming in, playing against the Raiders team. The game was kind of like, who wants to try to win this game today? He made like maybe 1 or 2 throws, and now they were in position to kick a field goal, and that was the game. But not much to talk about, I think, from that game today.
And I think that's the concern for Minnesota down the stretch here is who's going to play quarterback? Can they win with the quarterback they're playing with. Their defense is playing well. Think about that game. It's 0-0 till late.
Yep.
Mullins came in and did what he had to do.
Look, I'm with Devin here. Give me Josh Dobbs. Remember, they lost. They thought they had a whole game plan around Justin Jefferson. They were getting him back. He leaves this game early as well. So now all of a sudden you have to adjust. They should still be able to score more than 3 points. I get it, but I think there's a dynamicism. Is that even a word? I feel like there's an energy to Josh Dobbs. There's an athleticism there that isn't there with Nick Mullins. It gives him more of a dual threat. I would stick with Dobbs.
I just think that Dobbs has been struggling. He had the 4 interceptions in the game against the Bears, and he's getting hit a lot. And Nick Mullins knows the offense. And Dobbs had 2 weeks to kind of redeem himself. And Kevin O'Connell knew when it was time to pull him out. And again, I don't feel great about either guy at this point. I don't feel great about the Vikings winning their next 4 games.
Keep your hope alive, Mike.
I don't feel great about it.
I got to get this out of my mouth, though. Nick Mullins did a really good job.
Yes.
Yeah.
At the end of the
he knows the
ball
offense.
game,
He comes right in.
to go
Yes.
make the plays. So hats off to him.
All right, Zach Wilson, we mentioned him earlier. Played the best game of his career. What comes to mind for you?
Awesome. I think for the guy, what he's been through there in New York and the ups and the downs, to get the few weeks off, we saw him all throughout the game, sitting there, standing next to Aaron Rodgers, watching as Tim Boyle went out there and played, and then Simeon, and you could just see the back and forth. And I think we keep getting this energy from Zach. If he just sticks by Aaron Rodgers, eventually it's going to come through. And you get a Houston Texans team who's fighting to be in the playoffs, who's been playing good ball. They come, you playing them at home, and Zach Wilson steps up and leads that team. And you said it today in the screen room. How about Zach Wilson's leadership? And we saw that today.
You know, the plan when they got Aaron Rodgers, we're going to keep Zach Wilson. We've seen enough. He's certainly a talented guy. Let him sit and watch. Well, he watched for 4 plays, and then Aaron Rodgers got hurt. So I do think him being out, seeing those other guys play, I think it gave him a little bit of a chance to reset and have a little bit of that attitude like, it's not going to get any worse. Just go play. And he certainly did that today. I watch guys a lot. I watch the expressions on their face, the look in their eye. Compare the look he had today with the look he's had in different
He was having fun
moments in his
today.
career. He was having fun. He was out there playing, and his talent came through.
Yeah, you know what? And by the way, like, give the other guys credit. Like, he's had no offensive line help all season long. They played well today. The O-line played well. Garrett Wilson made plays. Breece Hall out of the backfield. Like, the team played. It wasn't all on Zach. Zach Wilson isn't the reason they've lost the games they've had. You know, he isn't the only reason, and he's not the only reason they won today. But good for Zach Wilson. I'm with you. I feel good for the kid because he's been put in a bunch of tough situations. Hasn't always helped himself out. But you know what? Like,
He gets blamed when they lose, Berry. Give it to him today. They won.
Yeah,
Give it to him.
Exactly. Good for Zach Wilson.
And for me, the key word is the future. I don't know whether there was anything to this idea that he was reluctant to come back and play, but you're laying the foundation for what comes next in your career if he's not going to be there next year. And maybe he gets a chance to redeem himself somewhere else. He redeemed himself.
He'll get a chance. There's no doubt about that.
All right, we'll get a chance to do this again next week. Thanks, as always, for some of your time. See you soon.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.